What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So this is something I'm beginning to notice, and I just want to draw attention to this. And that is, I'm beginning to notice more and more people, I'm assuming it's young people, who are ranking Shaquille O'Neal ahead of Hakeem Olajuwon. And I think it's coming because of the fact that they're looking at stats. They're looking at scoring titles maybe, and championship rings probably more than anything else. And they look and see all these highlights of Shaq dominating in the NBA Finals, and they just come to the conclusion that Shaq has to be ranked higher than Hakeem Olajuwon. And it's funny because, as I've said before, when they actually played, most people put Olajuwon ahead of Shaq, even with the 4 titles. And, look, I'm not knocking Shaq, man. Look, he was supposed to put up big numbers against the guys he put those numbers up in the 2000s. He was supposed to put up big numbers. That's not the issue. The issue is, look, I watched Hakeem Olajuwon during the 1990s. I watched Hakeem Olajuwon when he was, in my opinion, the best basketball player on the planet during the 2 years Michael Jordan was out. I watched Shaquille O'Neal's entire 19-year career. And as great as Shaquille O'Neal was, you have to come to certain conclusions when you look at Shaq's career versus Olajuwon's career. Olajuwon played 18 seasons. The last few years he played, he was dealing with health issues. In particular, I think he had some respiratory illness. Olajuwon began steadily declining, I would say, after the 1995-96 season. After that year, he steadily began declining as a basketball player. That would have been around the time he was 33, 34. Shaq began to decline as a player right around the age of 31 or so. Shaq played also with a lot more help and Hall of Famers than Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. Alright? I don't think that's something that I'm just making up. I think virtually everyone would agree with this. He played with Kobe Bryant, who is considered by most the second greatest shooting guard of all time. He played with Dwayne Wade, who is considered by many either the third or fourth greatest shooting guard of all time. Okay, he played with Steve Nash, who was one of the all-time great point guards, even though, it might have been a little bit later in his career than he would have preferred it to be. He played with the Big Three in Boston, with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen and Rajon Rondo. All right? He played with LeBron James. I'm talking about Shaquille O'Neal. Okay? This is a guy that played with Penny Hardaway, who would have been one of the all-time greats if not for injuries. He played with Horace Grant. He played with Nick Anderson back when Nick was a dog. He played with one of the original long-range bombers and Dennis Scott. He played with Glenn Rice. He played with Karl Malone. He played with Gary Payton. Not to mention some solid players. Robert Horry and Rick Fox and guys like that, man. He played with some really good players. Olajuwon's best teammates came in the twilight of his career. Barkley and Drexler. But a lot of Olajuwon's career, he didn't play on good teams, man. 9 times Olajuwon either did not make the playoffs or his team lost in the first round. Then a lot of his prime was wasted when he was being coached by Don Chaney, because Don Chaney wanted an offense that featured perimeter guys. Olajuwon was averaging like 21, 22 points a game, and the backcourt was averaging combined like 40 points a night. That's not right. So, so anyway, the perception in Olajuwon's prime was that he was the best big man in the NBA. All right? And to me, his best years, shit. Oh, man, what, 80, 84, 85 to 96? And during that time period, his competition included Kareem, Moses, Patrick Ewing, Artis Gilmore. Later on, of course, Shaq, David Robinson. Who else? Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting some big men. Jack Sigma, James Donaldson, Joe Carroll, so many different big men. Bill Laimbeer, the list goes on and on and on as far as big men in the NBA at that time. Mark Eaton, Manu Bol, like I said, the list goes on and on. When Shaq was at his apex as a big man, most of the big men were either retired, the great big men, retired or on their way out the NBA. I'm talking about the late 90s. He was the only one left. I mean, Olajuwon was still playing, but he was a shell of himself. All these other guys, they were retired or they were shells of themselves. And when he went to the finals, who was Shaq going up against? Todd McCullough? Dikembe Mutombo? He wasn't going up against him. An old-ass Rick Smits. Who was on his last legs during that finals. When he actually went up against a Hall of Fame caliber center in his prime and Ben Wallace, guess who won that series? The Pistons. Olajuwon's led the league in rebounding. Shaq never did it. Olajuwon's led the league in blocks. Multiple times, I believe. Shaq never did it. Olajuwon had to go up against the front line of Robert Parrish, who I forget to mention, Kevin McHale, and Larry Bird. It was killing. Olajuwon went up against Shaq, a 22-year-old more mobile Shaq, and outplayed him. He didn't go up against Todd McCullough. In the Western Conference Finals, he went up against none other than the MVP and David Robinson and destroyed him. So, yes, I have a big-time problem when I see people rank Olajuwon ahead of Shaq. What are you looking at? That's why I say championship rings, as far as counting them, are overrated. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.